A message from Stephen Curry.
Make sure y'all get y'all butts in the seats at 5 o'clock. Tip off. It's a little early, but everybody get off of work early in the Bay. Let's go.
I hope you listen to the greatest shooter in the history of the game, one of the greatest players in the history of the game. Game 6, a potential closeout game between the Golden State Warriors and Sacramento Kings, is at a very unusual time. 5 p.m. Friday. So, folks, if you're going to the game, get there early, represent Dub Nation, and go Warriors. This is Locked On Warriors.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Cyrus Saatsaz, your host. You can follow me on Twitter at Dog Surf Roadshow. We're recording this. I'm recording this right now. It's 3:15 p.m. on Thursday, April 27th, the day after the Golden State Warriors were victorious in a vitally huge game that gives the Warriors a 3-2 series lead. They beat the Kings 123-116. It was just an all-out team effort for the players who actually played. Steve Kerr limited his rotation to 9 players, and really, more realistically, you should say 8, because Moses Moody, who was the first player off the bench in the game, he was the official sixth man for the Warriors in Game 5, but he played 4 minutes 29 seconds before coming out. Didn't have a field goal attempt. It was mostly just great hustle, great effort on the defensive side of things. Did go to the line, which is always awesome. He attacked the rim. I absolutely love Moses Moody, and better a little bit than nothing. So I'm glad we saw him. But Kerr went with an 8-man rotation, his tried and true, who he trusts the most. And again, Draymond Green came off the bench, but there were a lot of heroic performances. Stephen Curry goes without saying. I don't know if we're going to see the amount of minutes that we saw from Stephen Curry. He played 41 minutes, 58 seconds. We'll just round that up to 42. Had another fantastic performance statistically, 31 points, shot 12 of 25 from the field. The only thing that wasn't going for him was his three-point shot. He was just 2 for 10 from beyond the arc, which goes to show how effective he was inside the three-point line, where he was 10 of 15. He has become such an incredibly effective player attacking the rim. And a lot of that is attributed to his workout regimen, his dedication to his physical self, developing muscle, developing conditioning. He is a much stronger player than he was earlier in his career, where he now fills a hole for this Golden State Warriors team that existed after Kevin Durant left, which was somebody that could get you easy buckets, somebody that is not just a shooter. Stephen Curry is no longer just a shooter. He is a playmaker, and he can get to the rim like as efficiently, as effectively as anyone else. And you saw that time and time and again in that game last night. And it was huge, obviously. I mean, Stephen Curry was massive. I'm hearing a lot of people say that Klay Thompson had his Game 6 Klay performance last night in Game 5. I don't think that's true. For starters, I'm going to echo the sentiments of my good friend Connor Letourneau, who I'm going to mention a few times on this show today, because he is a huge reason why later in the show I'm going to explain. I now know, at least, and look, some of you may agree, may disagree with my theory on what went wrong in terms of the regular season Golden State Warriors this year, but it was Connor's fantastic journalism that really just lit the light bulb over my head in terms of why the Warriors were only 44-38 as an overall record this year, why the Warriors struggled mightily as a road team, going just 11-30 this year. Thanks to his journalism, I have the answer. I'm going to reveal that later in the show. But Klay Thompson, look, I'm personally ecstatic that the real Game 6 Klay is just around the corner tomorrow, Friday, 5 p.m. tip, Chase Center. Klay Thompson did have a solid game. He unfortunately was in foul trouble routinely. As I mentioned on yesterday's show, of the 5 fouls he was called for, maybe 3 were justified. Some of those were utterly BS. So he was not playing as much as I think Steve Kerr wanted him to play. He finished playing 32 minutes, was 10 of 19 from the field, 5 for 11 from beyond the arc, finished the game with 25 points, added 2 rebounds. It was a solid game for him, but to say it was a Clay 6 performance, we're about to see the real Clay 6, I hope. But those two had a fantastic performance. And the player that I give credit to the most, that I gave love to last night, and I'll repeat this again, Andrew Wiggins. The real Wiggins is finally emerging. The Wiggins that was the second best player on a world championship team last year is now there, is now present, is now part of the Golden State Warriors. And regardless of the personal trauma he experienced that led to him missing nearly 3 months of action, those are 3 months he took off, folks. This is a well-rested and ready to go Andrew Wiggins, and he showed that last night. This is a player that used to be a shooting guard for the Minnesota Timberwolves, and now he's routinely playing power forward for the Golden State Warriors, but it's not phasing him. He was 9 for 16 from the field. He was 2 for 5 from beyond the arc. The rebounding number, he grabbed 4. It sure felt like he grabbed a lot more. But he was really battling inside. Did have 2 steals in the game, did have 2 blocks in the game, including that massive one on Malik Monk. Monk was just destroying the Warriors in that fourth quarter. So Wiggins finishes with a well-earned 20 points. So he had a fantastic performance. Kevon Looney. The first soundbite I'll play from this show will be from Draymond Green talking about what Kevon Looney means to the Golden State Warriors. Looney, had a monster game when it comes to the boards. Finished the game with 22 rebounds, matching the total that he had in the Western Conference clinching game last year against the Dallas Mavericks, when he also grabbed 22 rebounds. 22 rebounds, to put it in perspective for you, is a damn lot. Okay, that's nothing to just kind of scoff over. It was that kind of night for the Golden State Warriors, where a lot of players were having great games. So here's Draymond Green talking about what Kevon Looney and his presence inside as a defender, as someone who's now scoring buckets with a solid post-up game, as someone whose passing has dramatically improved. He had 7 assists last night. He's finding the open cutters. So here's Draymond, who himself had a great game. I'm going to talk about him in just a moment, talking about his front court teammate, Kevon Looney.
How much sort of a partnership you two have as the big guys, quote unquote, in this lineup?
Kevon has become an Andre Iguodala, Sean Livingston, like a calming force. When we were a lot younger in this run, we had those guys, Sean, Andre. That list goes on, but those 2 guys in particular, that no matter what was going on, I start turning the ball over, Clay go haywire, Steph go haywire, and they would come in and just calm us down. And Kevon is that for this team. He's that stabilizing force that allows everyone else to focus on what they need to focus on. And, the way he rebounds the ball is incredible. His playmaking has taken another step in the right direction and just continues to get better. And so, he's a guy who we have the ultimate trust in. And, also on the defensive end, if you get beat, he's going to be there, and I know for me, when I'm on the floor with him, I'm so much more comfortable on the defensive end just because he doesn't miss any assignment. And so he's been that guy for us all year, last couple years, and he's continuing to get better.
Absolutely. Kevon Looney had a phenomenal performance. Draymond Green, by the way, for the second game in a row, came off the bench. And it's done wonders for the team. This is a Warriors team who their kryptonite this year was the bench. And it wasn't necessarily because of personnel. They have the personnel, but it's just about who Kerr trusts. And in a moment, I'm going to explain that process, which I finally learned in terms of who Kerr trusts and his system this year, which is very different from all the other years he's coached in terms of who he decides plays, what lineups he implements. But Draymond Green, by the way, coming off the bench, people were calling him Dre Nowitzki. He had his highest scoring game in more than 5 years. He had 21 points, the most he scored in a regular season or playoff game since he scored 25 against the Phoenix Suns. This was back on March 17th, 2018, back when Kevin Durant was still on the team. And it was his first 20-point game since Christmas 2019. That was the horrific year of the Golden State Warriors dynasty when they won just 15 games. But kudos to Draymond Green for coming off the bench and doing a phenomenal job. Kudos to Kevon Looney for holding down the fort inside. I'm seeing in the chat, yes, Gary Payne II absolutely deserves love. The old Gary Payne II is back. The Gary Payne II that helped the Warriors win a world championship last year. He is playing the best ball of his life right now. And it's kudos to Gary Payne II as well. The Golden State Warriors as a whole, and this was a huge problem for them in games 1 and 2, offensive rebounds. The Warriors grabbed 11 of those in game 5, all of those coming from Kevon Looney, who grabbed 7, Gary Payne II, who grabbed 4, and they were huge. He was the little big man out there that we all know and love. So Gary Payne II, absolute kudos to you. Offensively, not a liability in any regard. 4 for 5 from the field. He took 1 3-point attempt. He was wide open. You got to take it when you're that open. He missed that, but that's okay. Finished the game with 6 rebounds, added 2 steals, 8 points. Just kudos to Gary Payne II. Fantastic performance from him. We'll have more in just a moment when we come back. Yes, Kev, Dubs in 6. It is weird that my prediction now is about to come true yet again. I did not think that was going to be possible. Nice little streak I got going there. So when we come back, though, I want to touch on what I've learned about Steve Kerr. And also just we'll obviously talk more about the Warriors and preview a pivotal game 6. And there's a couple stats as well I want to mention about Steph and Curry in terms of his place in the all-time rankings. Because with every game that Steph plays now, he's starting to creep up some lists there in terms of postseason rankings, all-time rankings. So we'll get into that and so much more. Got to give some love right now to one of our sponsors, eBay Motors. Let's get that overlay right there. And this is a sponsor. I can't emphasize enough how great it is to have a sponsor where like I don't have to fake it, right? I don't have to like just read a script regardless of how I feel. eBay Motors, like what they're providing in terms of a service is huge. They're giving you auto parts at incredible prices. And for a championship team like the Golden State Warriors, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. And the same comes to your vehicle in terms of the parts. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage and look for the green check to know the part will fit or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. Every dayers tomorrow, we'll be back at it with post-game following Game 6. Again, tip-off is at 5. Super weird start time, so expect us to be on the air. I don't have a confirmation in terms of Kylan Mills joining me, but I hope that is the case. I can't confirm that yet. So join us immediately after the game. Hopefully it'll be a celebration, because if the Warriors lose Game 6, yeah, I'm panicking again. I do not want to see a Game 7 where anything can happen, especially in Sacramento. By the way, Gotcha, who writes the 240p, bro. So I'm glad you brought that up. I've been told, first of all, I'm not going to engage with the chat as much early in the show. This is not a personal decision, but it partly comes down from the top, and it's also partly because apparently, I love engaging with people. I love human interaction. But at the same time, the show sometimes veers from the direction it's going on when I engage with the chat. So I'm going to save a lot of the chat for later in the show. But the 240p angle, referring to the quality of the production, we're moving finally. I've been talking about this for almost a year. Locked On Warriors is one of the last shows that's migrating to the StreamYard platform. And if you don't understand what that means, it's okay. The point is the quality should hopefully be better as well, because I've wondered if it's my computer, if it's my connection, but whenever I record interviews with Zoom, because sometimes other individuals' computers can't handle this platform that we're on right now, we use a platform called Restream. Their computers don't work on it. Like Mark Jones, for example, when he comes on the show, I have to record with Zoom, but I've also noticed with Zoom, the quality is infinitely better. So it's almost for sure this platform, sorry for the 240p, but for the video viewers, hopefully that'll improve in due time. Let's get to the Steve Kerr thing. I've been teasing this long enough. And again, this is a theory. It's not like this is some hardcore fact, but I hope you understand, especially if you're a longtime viewer of this show, you're hopefully aware by now that my credibility is sound. I don't feed you BS. I don't throw crap against the wall and see what sticks. If I tell you something, it's because I've double and triple checked with other athletes, other media members who I consider insiders. I hope my observation skills by now have shown that they're pretty damn good. And so, when I present a theory like this, it's not just half-assing. This is something I firmly believe in. And in this one particularly, I very much believe in. So Connor Letourneau, who for a long time has been a beat reporter for the San Francisco Chronicle covering the Golden State Warriors, that's no longer his role. CJ Holmes now has that role. CJ is a guest on the show regularly. Love him. Connor has been promoted to what's called an enterprise reporter, where he has a lot more creative freedom in terms of what he wants to write about. And he's focusing a lot on hard-hitting journalism, stories that reflect humanity. But right now he's back fully on the Warriors beat. And brother, we've missed you, because one of the stories you wrote, Connor Letourneau did, this was 2 days ago, was a profile piece on Steve Kerr and his coaching style. And I'm going to read verbatim these 2 paragraphs that he wrote. It was in the middle of the story, and I saw this, and I'm like, what the hell is this? And I called Connor just to confirm and just to get any additional details so that I could have a full picture. And hello to everyone who's coming in. I am reading all the chats. So hello, Fish and Chips. Here, I'll even show you some love for a second. Hey. All right. So, and hello to SG Sports Talk channel. What is up? So here is what I read in Connor Letourneau's piece on Steve Kerr a couple days ago, and I'll tweet this out in a little bit so you can see the visual as well, the screen capture of the 2 paragraphs I'm referring to. Quote, Kerr also hires coaches whose strengths complement his weaknesses. Before taking the Kings head coaching job last spring, Mike Brown spent 6 seasons providing the attention to detail the laid-back Kerr needed. Kenny Atkinson, who turned down the Hornets head coaching position to stay a Warriors assistant, teaches Kerr daily about analytics. Here's Kerr speaking now. Quote, Kenny came in and really changed a lot of the way we thought and operated from a number standpoint, Kerr said. But ultimately, we're like sailors on a submarine. You better like the person you're working with, unquote. And what these 2 paragraphs reveal to me is that, unlike in years past, Steve Kerr has suddenly decided to focus a lot more on analytics. I've heard a lot of his quotes this year, and I keep hearing something that I've never heard him utter before. Maybe he's uttered it at various places, but not at the consistent rate that he mentions it now. And these 2 words are net rating. Net rating is an advanced metric that measures statistics based on 100 possessions. And one analytic that Kerr is relying heavily on is net rating in terms of which combination of players out there produce the best results, right? Because part of net rating in terms of advanced metrics involves like 3-man units and how they work together, 4-man units, 2-man units, 5-man units. The 5-man ones are the ones I focus on the most, because you're literally seeing per 100 possessions how a 5 individual unit works. I'm also of the very fervent belief that of all the major sports, baseball, football, don't know enough about hockey to give you an educated opinion on that, but between baseball, football, and basketball is by far, I don't think it's even close, should be least reliant on analytics. What I'm trying to say with that is, if you watch the game, if you study the game, you don't need numbers to tell you who is good and who is bad. Not to say that all numbers are bad. Certain analytics clearly represent reality, and like scoring averages, for example. Absolutely. My predecessor, Wes Goldberg, frowned strongly on rebounds. I don't agree. I think rebounds are very important. Sometimes don't tell the whole picture. assists, shooting percentages. There's certain stats that clearly reflect reality. Net rating is a good one. But what I learned from these two paragraphs is that Steve Kerr on a daily basis, and I confirmed this with a phone call every day, speaks with Kenny Atkinson. And I didn't know this about Kenny Atkinson. I don't know a lot about Kenny Atkinson. All this does is suddenly make me very focused on the number one assistant on the Golden State Warriors, because I don't feel like many people have done much research and much reporting on him. Kenny Atkinson on a daily basis supposedly enlightens Steve Kerr with analytics. He's a big time numbers guy. That to me is a detriment. That to me is why we saw a lack of progression with the youngsters. That's a huge reason why we saw James Wiseman basically pushed out the door. That's a huge reason why the team saw these two-way players playing often, because Anthony Lamb, for example, is a massive beneficiary of net rating. When you put him in and plug him in with these numbers, and you have him, for example, in a lineup with four other players, Anthony Lamb produces solid numbers when it comes to net rating. Like most lineups with Anthony Lamb in it have a positive net rating, meaning per 100 possessions, they're outscoring the opposition. And and for me, this was like the light that shined over my head. It suddenly made me realize what went into his decision-making. And it's also a huge reason why now in the postseason, you're seeing Kerr go back to what he's traditionally done, relying on instincts, relying on the eye test, and playing the veterans that he knows can deliver, as opposed to the regular season when we saw players like Jonathan Kuminga sometimes get DNP'd. Moses Moody got a lot of DNPs. James Wiseman got traded. Wiseman had horrible net rating statistics. The moment I heard that, it all made sense. And here's my personal thought on this, which is I love Steve Kerr. This was the first year I've ever criticized him as a head coach. Last year, my first full year hosting this program, I had a lot of people coming to me saying, Kerr sucks. I prefer Ty Lue, because my first reaction to anyone that says Steve Kerr always is, who would you replace him with? It's not a productive conversation if you just simply hate on someone. You also need to come at me with, okay, fine, what's the solution here? Who are you going to replace this head coach with? And the only name I ever heard was Ty Lue. And look, Ty Lue, I think, is a fine coach. He's not a great coach. He's had one 50-win season in his entire career. And I don't want Ty Lue over Steve Kerr. I think the team is fine with Steve Kerr. So I defended him. This year, things have been stinky. Things have been off. The records have shown that. The minute distribution has shown that. And now I know why. And now hopefully you folks know why too. He is completely reliant on Kenny Atkinson and analytics oftentimes to decide who he's going to play. And the problem with that is, especially with a young player like Kuminga or Moody, their analytics at this stage of their career is not going to be great. They're going to have to grow into that. Jordan Poole is an example of a player I think Kerr was ignoring that on, but you also saw Poole's minutes decline, and you've seen him relegated to a bench role, especially toward the end of the season. His analytics, to a certain extent, especially when it comes to net rating, were not always great. You also heard Steve Kerr mention how he loves the combination of Kuminga and Lamb. I haven't actually looked at that analytics yet in terms of those two and their net rating, but something tells me the numbers is what stuck out to him. And all I can ask of Steve Kerr, is stop focusing so much on the numbers, please. You've been doing fine. You've been doing a phenomenal job your entire career. You've been the leader of a dynasty. You don't need net rating to become a better coach. And the moment I heard that, for me, finding an answer was a massive relief. And so the problem is Kenny Atkinson. He loves his data. He loves numbers. I've read Moneyball. I used to be a massive baseball fan. I totally understand the value of analytics. I look at the numbers every day myself. But of all the sports, when it comes to basketball, I just do not feel you need it. You don't need a piece of paper with a lot of numbers to tell you if a player is good or bad. And Steve Kerr hasn't needed it either. The attention to detail clearly was missing this year. He plugged Kenny Atkinson into that role that Mike Brown had. Mike Brown also loves analytics, but Mike Brown is also very much a people person and is very much an eye test person as well. Kenny Atkinson apparently is a very analytics-driven individual. So there you go. That is what happened this year. And again, you can agree or disagree with me if you want. That's fine. But I firmly believe that is what happened this year. And I got to give Kerr a lot of respect for the simple reason that he's very open-minded. He listens. I just think he's maybe listening to Kenny Atkinson a little too much. Great news is postseason, the stuff doesn't matter for the most part. Your rotations are limited. and the Warriors are up 3-2. So that's the most important thing. So we're stoked on that. I'm going to address any chats when we come back. Got to give some love to Ibotta, which is a great resource if you want to save money on shopping, right? So let's say you do some school shopping, some groceries. You can get a little something for yourself with Ibotta because you can earn cash back on every shopping trip, where Ibotta gives you cash back on hundreds of grocery items from produce, personal care, pantry goods. Either link your loyalty account or upload your receipt after you shop to get your cash back. It's that easy. The average Ibotta user earns $120 a year in real, actual cash back in your hands, in your pocket, in your bank account. That $120 a year could cover the entire cost of a shopping trip. And right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 just for trying Ibotta. Just use the code LOCKED, LOCKED, when you register. Just go to the App Store or Google Play and download the free Ibotta app and use the code LOCKED for $5. LOCKED. That's Ibotta, IBOTTA, in the Google Play or App Store, and use the code LOCKED. That's LOCKED. You
are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts. One final segment. Again, you can follow me on Twitter at DogSurfRoadshow. Mike writes in the chat. I'm going to address these now. We're in our final segment. Who do the Warriors match up better with, LA or Memphis? I think from a matchup perspective, the Grizzlies. They've shown they can beat them. The Grizzlies are lacking size, especially with Steven Adams and Brandon Clark out. So I say from a matchup perspective, it's the Grizzlies, but the Warriors are likely going to be playing the Los Angeles Lakers. And I hate that we're looking ahead, but look, it is fun to talk about. The Warriors are far from done with the Kings. I don't want to write off the Kings just yet, but if we're talking about next round opponents, it is a fun discussion. Again, I think the Grizzlies are a better matchup given they don't have Adams. They don't have Brandon Clark. But if you play the Lakers, you got home court advantage. And the Lakers are old. They're big, but they're slower. LeBron is showing his age right now. Anthony Davis, a player who's a freak of nature. He's one of the best players this game's ever seen. There's a reason why he's on the 75th anniversary team. Draymond Green knows how to guard him. So I'm comfortable with either one. What I feel really comfortable about is the fact that whoever the Warriors play next, I think it's going to be easier. I really do. The Kings are such a formidable opponent. They're athletic. They're fast. Offensively, to have to deal with that is just an absolute headache. So I'm going to go, so regardless, I'm going to say the Grizzlies are easier, but the home court advantage against the Lakers, I don't see the Warriors losing any home games in this postseason. They played so dominant at home. That 33-8 record was actually 2 games better than their home record last year. So my point is, either way, I'm not stressing that hard. I do think the Warriors will beat either team, but they have to get past the Kings first. Kevin Prentice writes, if the first half is strong for the Golden State Warriors, it's over. So there we go. I want to play some sound real quick. Talking about Steve Kerr, I really want to give him love just because this whole thing is about Steph, man. I mean, Steph is playing quite possibly the best basketball of his life. His shooting percentages this year were much higher than they were a year ago. The fact that he can finish at the rim, the fact that he's not a defensive liability is huge. So I have a couple sound bites I want to play from Steph, and these are both post-game on the NBC broadcast. I've been watching the national broadcast just because I like the different perspective. I love my boy Fitz. Him and I go back over 20 years, worked together for a very long time. I love Fitz. He's a great human being. So I don't say that as a slight to him. It's just, when they're on national TV, you're hearing new perspectives, and I like that. So here's Steph after the game talking to Fitz and Kalena about the end of Game 5.
Steph, you guys had 60 points in the paint. That's big time. You had a bunch of those. Can you describe what you saw on that last and one layup where you just kept probing, kept your dribble alive?
I had some good looks from threes. Pretty much all game. Has missed a bunch of them, but the way that they're pressuring Davion, he just tried to get into the ball. Even Fox is picking up a half court. So once you get back past the first line of defense, you just got to see, where Sabonis is. He's not really a rim protector, but he tries to show himself early. But we can find a lot of good looks that way and negate their pressure. That last one was just trying, literally all I was thinking about was don't turn it over, don't turn it over, don't turn it over. And then finally the lane opened up for a layup.
And he's referring to that play where he kept dribbling around, and I can't, was it Harrison Barnes that was chasing him? I can't imagine what it's like to defend Stephen Curry. It's almost like you have to have soccer player endurance because you're just running endlessly. And then Steph finished the play, getting fouled, the +1 to pretty much wrap up the game at that point. So phenomenal play from Steph. And here's one more. This is Steph referring to his teammate Kevon Looney, who again 22 rebounds. He's one of the many differences in this series, but we came into the series with a lot of chatter about Domantas Sabonis and how difficult the Warriors may find themselves in defending him. That part's been fine, and it's largely because of Kevon Looney. And here's Steph talking about Looney.
You're his teammate, but can you realize that one of the nice Warrior plays is a missed shot that Looney will just get it back to somebody else, and you guys get second chance points? How do you get 22 rebounds in 34 minutes?
It's a luxury to have. I mean, I don't know, his hands has a magnet connected to the ball. We say the word, he's relentless. He finds, the angles. And he's pretty sure-handed once he gets to find the open guy. So it was a big effort on his part. Second 20-rebound game of the series. I think, that gives us such good momentum and allows us to have extra possessions, and it's huge for us.
Well, you're
absolutely right. And SG Sports Talk Channel wrote that they're interested. First of all, thanks for being a fan of the show. I really do appreciate that. And you wrote if you can be a special guest on Locked On Warriors. Why don't you start with this? Either send me a DM on Twitter or email me. The show's email account is warriors24pod@gmail.com. We're still accepting. We have very limited space for local sponsors, but if you're in the San Francisco Bay Area or somewhere near here and you want to be a sponsor of this show, you hear how much love we give to our sponsors, and we have a very few limited spaces for that. Jump in, email warriors24pod@gmail.com. If you're an aspiring media professional, I'm always here to help. I teach the subject, man. It's and anything I can do to help out. We'll talk about the whole special guest thing. That's another discussion. But and Bruce Morrow writes, if you hate me, hit the like button. If you like me, hit the like button. Thank you. I don't know why you'd hate me. That kind of sucks. I hope not. I'm not trying to get hate from anyone. So game 6, again, Friday, 6 p.m., 5 p.m. Vitally important game. Interesting to see what adjustments Kerr makes, simply because the one player that is not delivering for the Warriors, who's still getting a lot of reps, who's getting a lot of trust from Steve Kerr, is Donte DiVincenzo. Some games he's delivered, but there's more times than not. The shooting just hasn't been there. The hustle has, though. He's a great defender, and he's a great facilitator. He has great handles. But last night, in 17 minutes of play, was just 1 for 5 from the field, was 0 for 3 from beyond the arc for a whopping total of 2 points. He led the team in negative plus-minus. He was -11 when he was out there. And this is where, again, Moses Moody, instead of getting 4 minutes and change, why not give him 10 minutes? He's delivered every time he's been out there. He's been fantastic for the Warriors in this series against the Kings. I still maintain that JaMychal Green is a positive in this series when Alex Len plays. A game this close, like it was for the Warriors last night, 123-116, I felt like it could have been a blowout, just like it was in game 3. I mean, I don't think it's a coincidence that the one game that the Warriors dominated in this series was game 3, a game where we saw Moses Moody, JaMychal Green, and Jonathan Kuminga get heavy minutes. I'm obviously not counting on Kuminga. Kerr just does not feel he's right for this series. So be it. What are you going to do? But JaMychal, I don't think would hurt. But regardless, Donte DiVincenzo, those 17 minutes, give some of those to Moody. I really wouldn't mind that. So there we go. So that's the show. I'm checking out the chat, seeing if anybody wrote anything that I should address. But I don't think there's really much. And Fish and Chips, right? We might disagree, but no hate. Thank you. I do not ever. I could care less if you disagree. I mean, sports is all about debating and the back and forth, and it's fun. The S-bomb talk, and I love that stuff too, man. So as long as there's no hate, I could care less. That's awesome. All right. So, yeah, and Ethan, thank you for saying that. There is always people who doubt me. And for those who do, I always say, why don't you bring out that sheet of mistakes, of incorrections that I've said and broadcasted, and you're not going to find anything on that list because I don't spew nonsense here on this program. I try to be accurate. Yeah, I like that. If you like Kuminga, hit the like button. But anyways, regardless, the Warriors are 1 game away. Game 6. We might see Game 6 Clay. That's an interesting prospect. 5 p.m. is the start time. Check it out. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. Bruce Morrow. No, we're not clamoring for Kerr to get fired. I've never once asked for that. And now that I know that Kenny Atkinson has been the root of this whole thing, yeah, Kerr's kind of off my radar a little bit. The only thing I wish Kerr would do is just don't listen to him as much. Maybe just listen to some of your other assistants, or just go with what you've been doing the previous 9 years instead of year 10, if this is year 10 for him, whatever this year is. Anyways, thank you, everyone. Let's hope Game 6 is victorious so we can start talking about either the Lakers or the Grizzlies, and join us tomorrow for post-game. Hopefully, Kylan will be with me to break it all down. Follow the program on Twitter at LockedOnDubs. Until the next episode, thank you. Yeah, and we'll see you soon. Thanks. Bye.